Dr. Phil stopped mid-sentence. The envelope in his hand trembled slightly, not from nervousness, but from the weight of what it contained. The studio cameras kept rolling, but everyone knew something unprecedented was about to happen. "Stop the tape," he said quietly. The words cut through the air like a knife. What happened next would shatter a 40-year-old lie and reunite a family that had been torn apart by deception. The studio audience sat frozen. On stage, 52-year-old Jennifer Matthews clutched the armrest of her chair, her knuckles white. Beside her, 74-year-old Margaret Sullivan, Jennifer's grandmother, stared at the envelope with a look that mixed terror and desperate hope. Neither woman knew that in less than 5 minutes, everything they believed about their family would be destroyed. "Before we continue," Dr. Phil said, his voice taking on that trademark tone that signaled he was about to break every rule in the producer's handbook, "I need everyone in this studio to understand something. What you're about to witness isn't entertainment. This is about truth. And truth, no matter how painful, is always better than a lie." But to understand why that envelope mattered so much, we need to go back to where it all started. 3 weeks earlier, Jennifer had contacted the Dr. Phil show with a story that seemed almost too tragic to be true. She had grown up believing her mother, Sarah Sullivan, had abandoned her when she was just 2 years old. Margaret, her grandmother, had raised her with love but also with a narrative that Jennifer had internalized as absolute fact. "Your mother didn't want you. She chose drugs over you. She walked away and never looked back." For 50 years, Jennifer had lived with that wound. The abandonment. The rejection. The fundamental belief that her own mother had deemed her unworthy of love. But 6 months ago, Jennifer had received a message on Facebook that would begin unraveling everything. A woman named Carol, claiming to be Sarah's childhood friend, had written, "I don't know what you've been told, but your mother never abandoned you. She fought to get you back until the day she died." Jennifer didn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. Her entire identity had been built on the story of abandonment. She had confronted Margaret, who became defensive. "That woman is lying," Margaret had insisted. "She doesn't know what she's talking about. Your mother was an addict who chose her lifestyle over you." But Carol had been persistent. She sent photos, letters, documentation that suggested a very different story. And finally, she sent Jennifer a copy of something that changed everything, a death certificate. Sarah Sullivan had died in 1985, when Jennifer was just 7 years old. Not from an overdose, as Jennifer had been told, but from ovarian cancer. And according to Carol's information, Sarah had spent the last 3 years of her life in hospice care, desperately trying to contact her daughter, only to be blocked at every turn by Margaret. That's when Jennifer knew she needed Dr. Phil. The day of the taping had started normally enough. Dr. Phil had introduced the case to his audience. "Today we have a grandmother and granddaughter who have been estranged for over a year because of allegations about the past. Jennifer believes her grandmother has been lying to her for 5 decades about what really happened to her mother. Margaret says she did what she had to do to protect Jennifer from a drug-addicted mother who would have destroyed her life." Margaret had come prepared. She sat on that stage with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed her story 1,000 times. "I loved my daughter," she said, her voice cracking with what seemed like genuine emotion. "But Sarah was sick. She was an addict. I had to protect Jennifer." "Did you tell Jennifer her mother was dead?" Dr. Phil asked. "Yes. Because to Jennifer she was. Sarah was so consumed by drugs that the woman I knew, my daughter, was already gone." Jennifer's face had crumpled. Even now, even with doubt swirling, hearing her grandmother say those words felt like being abandoned all over again. But Dr. Phil had done something Jennifer hadn't expected. He'd had his team investigate. Really investigate. They'd tracked down Carol. They'd found medical records. They'd located people who had known Sarah during those final years. And what they'd discovered was so shocking that Dr. Phil had made a decision no one on his team had anticipated. He'd had his producers prepare an envelope. Inside was documentation that would prove, beyond any doubt, what had really happened 40 years ago. Margaret, Dr. Phil said, his voice taking on an edge that made even the camera operators tense up. I want to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did Sarah ever try to contact Jennifer after you took custody? Margaret's composure flickered for just a moment. She called a few times, but she was high and... Stop. Dr. Phil held up his hand. The single word carried such authority that Margaret's mouth snapped shut. Stop right there. He turned to one of his producers off camera. Bring them in. Jennifer looked confused. Margaret looked terrified. And that's when Dr. Phil pulled out the envelope. Margaret, he said, his voice softer now but no less firm. I'm going to give you one more chance to tell the truth. Because in about 30 seconds, 2 people are going to walk onto this stage who will expose every lie you've told. Margaret's face had gone completely pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Then let me help you. Dr. Phil opened the envelope and pulled out a single sheet of paper. This is a letter. It was written by your daughter Sarah in October of 1984, 6 months before she died. She gave it to her hospice nurse with instructions to mail it to Jennifer when Jennifer turned 18. He paused, letting the words sink in. The nurse kept that letter for 11 years. She tried to mail it to Jennifer at the address Sarah had given her, your address, Margaret. But you returned it. Marked returned to sender, recipient unknown. The studio audience gasped. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. Margaret sat frozen, unable to speak. But here's what you didn't know, Dr. Phil continued, his voice growing stronger. That nurse kept a copy. And 6 months ago, when she saw Jennifer's post in a Facebook group for people searching for their birth parents, she reached out. He turned to Jennifer, his expression softening. Your mother never abandoned you. She fought for you. And she wanted you to know the truth. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Dr. Phil handed the letter to Jennifer. Her hand shook so badly she could barely unfold it. Through tears, she began to read aloud. My dearest Jennifer, if you're reading this, it means I didn't make it. The cancer won. But baby girl, I need you to know that I never stopped fighting for you. Every single day I was alive, I tried to get to you. Your grandmother told me you were better off without me, that seeing me sick would only hurt you. But I would have given anything, for one more day with you. Jennifer couldn't continue. The sobs came in waves, her whole body shaking. But Dr. Phil wasn't done. Margaret, do you have anything to say? For the first time in 40 years, Margaret Sullivan's carefully constructed facade crumbled. I thought I was protecting her. From what? Dr. Phil's voice was sharp. From a mother who loved her? From a woman who was dying and just wanted to say goodbye to her daughter. From pain, Margaret whispered. From seeing her mother waste away. From the cancer, from... That wasn't your decision to make. The words hung in the air. Dr. Phil let them sit there, let their weight be felt by everyone in that studio. You didn't protect Jennifer from pain, Margaret. You guaranteed it. Because for 50 years, this woman has believed she was unlovable. That her own mother chose drugs over her. You didn't spare her from grief, you gave her a wound that never healed. Margaret was crying now, but Dr. Phil wasn't backing down. And here's what makes this even worse, he continued. Sarah wasn't an addict. We had her medical records reviewed by 3 independent physicians. She was prescribed pain medication for her cancer, yes. But there's zero evidence she ever abused drugs. You made that up. Jennifer's head snapped toward her grandmother. What? Your mother was sick, Dr. Phil said gently to Jennifer. She had stage 4 ovarian cancer. The medications she was taking were prescribed by her oncologist to manage pain. Your grandmother decided, on her own, that Sarah was too sick for you to see. And rather than explain the truth, she created a lie that would turn you against your mother forever. The revelation hit Jennifer like a physical blow. Her grandmother, the woman who had raised her, who she had trusted completely, had stolen not just her mother, but her entire understanding of herself. Nobody in that studio was prepared for what Dr. Phil did next. He gestured off camera. "There are 2 people backstage who have been waiting to meet you, Jennifer. People your mother made sure would be there for you if she couldn't be." The studio doors opened. 2 women walked onto the stage, one in her 60s, one slightly younger. Jennifer stared at them, confused. "Jennifer," Dr. Phil said, "meet your mother's sisters. Your aunts. Linda and Patricia Sullivan." The studio erupted. Jennifer stood up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. My mother had sisters." "2 of them," Dr. Phil confirmed. "And they'd been looking for you for almost 40 years. Linda, the older of the 2, was already crying. "We never stopped searching. Your grandmother told us you'd been adopted and that the records were sealed. She said you'd moved out of state and wanted nothing to do with our family." Patricia stepped forward, her voice breaking. "We tried everything. Private investigators. Court petitions. We even hired lawyers. But your grandmother had changed your last name and moved 3 times. Every trail went cold." Jennifer looked at Margaret, her expression a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. "Why?" Margaret's response was barely audible. "I lost my daughter. I couldn't lose you too." Dr. Phil's voice cut through the emotion. "So you made sure Jennifer lost everyone. Her mother. Her aunts. Her entire maternal family. Because you couldn't handle your own grief." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. The truth, after 40 years, was finally out. Dr. Phil turned to address the camera directly, something he rarely did. "I want everyone watching at home to understand something. Grief makes people do desperate things. But grief is never an excuse for stealing someone's truth." He looked back at Jennifer, who was now standing between her 2 aunts, all 3 women clinging to each other. "Jennifer, your mother left you one more thing," Dr. Phil said softly. He reached into the envelope again and pulled out a small silver bracelet. "She wore this every day. The nurse who cared for her said that in her final weeks, when the pain was so bad she couldn't speak, she would hold this bracelet and mouth your name." He placed it in Jennifer's palm. Engraved on the inside were 6 words. "My Jennifer. Forever and always. Mom." The studio audience stood. Some were crying. Others were applauding. But everyone understood they had just witnessed something profound. Jennifer looked at the bracelet, then at her aunts, then at Dr. Phil. "She never abandoned me." "No," Dr. Phil said firmly. "She never did. She fought for you until her last breath. And now you know the truth. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten." In the weeks that followed, Jennifer and her aunts began rebuilding the family that had been stolen from them. Linda and Patricia shared photos, stories, memories, 40 years worth of a mother Jennifer had never known. They visited Sarah's grave together for the first time. Jennifer finally got to say goodbye. Margaret Sullivan was not charged with any crime. Lying to a family member isn't illegal. But she lost the relationship she had fought so hard to preserve. Jennifer cut off contact, unable to forgive the decades of deception. Dr. Phil arranged for Jennifer to receive counseling through his foundation. "You've carried a lie for 50 years," he told her in a follow-up call. "It's going to take time to rebuild your sense of self around the truth." But the impact of that episode went far beyond one family. Hundreds of people reached out to the Dr. Phil show with similar stories. Families torn apart by lies about addiction, death, abandonment. The episode became one of the most watched in the show's history, with over 50 million views across platforms. Dr. Phil addressed this in a follow-up episode. What we learned from Jennifer's story is that truth matters. It always matters. No matter how painful the truth is, a lie is always worse. Because a lie doesn't just change the past, it poisons the future. The silver bracelet now sits on Jennifer's wrist every single day. A reminder of the mother who never stopped loving her. And a promise to herself that she'll never accept a lie as truth again. Dr. Phil ended that original episode with words that resonated far beyond the studio walls. To everyone watching, if you're keeping a secret that affects someone else's understanding of who they are, I'm asking you to consider the cost. Because the truth may hurt for a moment, but a lie hurts forever. And in Margaret Sullivan's case, that lie had hurt for 40 years. Until one man with an envelope decided that enough was enough. The truth had been buried. But Dr. Phil had dug it up. And in doing so, he'd given a daughter back her mother's love, and returned to her the family that had been stolen. The episode ended with Jennifer holding the bracelet, tears streaming down her face, surrounded by the aunts she never knew existed. Margaret sat alone on the other side of the stage, her 40-year lie finally exposed. Dr. Phil's final words were simple but profound. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is tell the truth. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And that truth had set Jennifer free.